Yo, what's good today, fellas? We're hopping into my top 10 Modern Warfare guns you guys should be using here in Warzone. These are going to be the best loadouts you guys can use for these Modern Warfare guns here. Before we get into it, if you guys go into the video, make sure you guys drop it a like, subscribe, those notifications turned on, and let's hop into these setups. All right, so for our first gun here today, we're taking a look at the CR56 AMAX. We absolutely love the AMAX. By the way, this is a camo that I have saved on here as a variant. You can't equip this anymore. I know a lot of people like to ask about that in the comment section. There's a lot of these camos you can't do that for, but let's hop into a build here for the AMAX. First thing on this muzzle, of course, that mono suppressor. We run the mono pretty much on a lot of our guns. I mean, well, pretty much every single one of them here in Modern Warfare. So let's go through on the mono suppressor. In the barrel section, we're going to throw on the XRK Zodiac S440 barrel. It's the longest barrel out there. We use that just because we're trying to make this a true AR, not like a hybrid AR SMG. Next up, in the underbarrel section, we're throwing on the Commando foregrip here. I know some people like to run something like me, like the Ranger. If you guys feel like the recoil is a little bit too much, you can throw on the Ranger, but just keep in mind it will slow you down a little bit more so than running something like the Commando. In the magazine section, we're throwing on the 45 round mag here just because there's no other option. And well, we're not going to throw on this and try to make it a DMR. That's just not really viable in any way, shape, or form. So we're going to throw on the 45. And then to finish off this build here, we have a couple options in the optics section, which I would suggest. And that's going to be the Corp Combat Hollow Sight if you want to use this as more of like a kind of like a medium range gun here for more like Rebirth Island purposes. Or if you want to just use it as a straight AR, you can run the VLK 3x optic. And if you want to get even a little bit more crazy with it, down here, there's going to be the PBX Hollow 7 sight, which is basically the same thing as the Corp Combat Hollow, but just looks a little bit cooler. Does literally the same thing, but those are your three options in here. I'm just going to throw on the VLK, and this is my full build here for the AMAX. Absolutely love this gun. Now let's move on to our next gun for these Modern Warfare weapons. All right, next up, we're going to take a look at the Kilo 141. We love the Kilo. Very low recoil gun. Definitely a lot more so than the AMAX. AMAX is going to bounce around a little bit more so than this thing here, but let's give you guys a good build for this gun. First thing, muzzle. Obviously, mono suppressor. Don't really got to, you know, go too much into that. Barrel section, we're running the Singard Arms 19.8 Prowler. The Prowler barrel and the SOCOM barrel basically do the same thing. With the Prowler barrel, it's going to do everything better than the SOCOM barrel, so I'd recommend this one exclusively. In the underbarrel section, we're throwing on the Commando foregrip. This thing's not going to bounce around too much. You just need to tap into that stabilization, and I don't really recommend anything else in here. It just does not make sense. In the magazine section, this is where you can have a little bit of personal preference between the 50 and the 60 round mag. I'm a 60 round magazine kind of guy, so I'm going to go for the 60, but I'd recommend for you guys to stay away from that 100 round drum, as that's not going to be good in any way, shape, or form. So stay away from that, but go for the 50 or 60, up to your preference. Me, I'm going for the 60. And then the optics section here, much like for the AMAX, we have a couple options in here, but I pretty much suggest more or less to just use the VLK. And then, I mean, I guess you guys can go for the Corp Combat, and that's gonna be pretty solid as well if I had good success with it. But I mean, well, I guess you can run it pretty much either way, the Corp Combat or the VLK. Either way, you're gonna have some fun, you're gonna have some success, you're gonna get some dubs, you're gonna get a lot of kills. It's gonna be a lot of fun. So go ahead and run this, and hope this is my full build here for the Kilo. Definitely try it out, use it, top tier gun here in Warzone. I really like it. Okay, so for our next video today, we're going to take a look at the Modern Warfare MP5. Obviously, this is a Modern Warfare top 10, so we're not taking a look at the Cold War MP5, but just for any guys out there that are wondering, also, this is a Vanguard CDL camo. You can't equip this on these guns. I just have this saved as a variant, and that's the only reason I got this. Got to put that out there. So, first thing in the muzzle category, we're going to throw on the monolithic suppressor on the end of the gun as opposed to the integral. The integral, you guys could definitely do that. It's not going to really make a difference. It comes down to almost like personal preference on visually. What do you prefer? I don't really notice much of a difference. I just prefer the mono on the end of the gun. It just looks cooler to me, and I feel like I perform better when it looks cooler. So it is what it is. You don't really got to think too much about that. In the underbarrel section, though, we're gonna go through on the Merc foregrip here for that recoil control and hipfire accuracy. MP5 here has got some really solid hipfire, and we're trying to accentuate that benefit, and we're gonna do that here with the Merc foregrip. The magazine section, we're gonna throw on the 45 round mag, as that's really the only option here that's viable. Don't waste your time with the 10mm auto 30. I know it says increase your damage and range, but do not use it. It's not worth it. Run the 45. And then in the stock section, we're gonna go through on the FTAC collapsible. This is really good for increasing that overall movement speed and just agility. I really like it. And to finish off this whole build here, we're gonna go through on a perk, and that's gonna be Sleight of Hand. The MP5 here, the Modern Warfare one at least, has a bit of an interesting reload speed, and it's a little bit on the slower side, and that can kind of catch you with your pants down, specifically on like Rebirth Island, or if you're just, you know, facing off against more than one opponent at a time. So Sleight of Hand really kind of combats that, and it makes this gun a lot more usable. So this is my full build here for this thing. I really like the Modern Warfare MP5. I don't use it too much, but it is still really good. All right, next up, let's take a look here at the M4A1. You guys on the channel absolutely love the M4. This is like a gun that blew up my channel. Not blew up, but it helped my channel gain some traction here initially when Modern Warfare came out, and I've been really digging the M4 pretty much ever sinse. So let's hop into a build here for this thing. Muzzle, of course, mono suppressor. Don't gotta discuss that here too much. In the barrel section, we're gonna go through on the stock M16 Grenadier barrel. I would prefer to run this one over something like the Corvus Custom Marksman. The rest of these in here between, you know, besides these two are going to be a bunch of shenanigans. So I would not recommend running the Commando, the Tac-Light, or the Predator barrel. It just does not make sense. I would recommend the Grenadier barrel pretty much, you know, 6 out of 7 days a week. You could probably get away with running the Corvus Custom, but not really. So I just recommend to go for this. In the underbarrel section, we're throwing on the Commando foregrip here like usual. Don't gotta really invest in a foregrip that's going to be a lot more like recoil control heavy, like the Ranger foregrip, for instance. That's just going to slow you down a little bit too much, and this thing's got pretty manageable recoil. I mean, I'm talking even like I use this on console way back in the day. It's really not that hard to control. In the magazine section, though, we're going to go for that beautiful 60-round mag. Of course, I'm a 60-round magazine kind of guy, so it's what I like to do. This is my preference here. Just stay away, by the way, from the Par 32 and, of course, the SOCOM. This is not it. Neither of these are it. Don't use them. In the optics section, though, and much like all the other ARs, you guys can run these in a variety of different ways, whether it be the Corp Combat Hollow Sight, the VLK 3x optic, or if you want to get a little fancy with it and you got it unlocked and you like it, the PBX Hollow 7 sight. I mean, I kind of just been preferring this when I go for like a hollow just because I like the way it looks. But if I'm actually gonna go for the like a regular AR, I'm gonna put on like the crosshair one that actually makes this a really clean sight. And I just am gonna be running this. So this is gonna be my full build here. Pretty standard for Modern Warfare AR. But just, I mean, it's really good. If it's not broke, don't fix it. You know what I'm saying? Now we're gonna take a look at a gun that I think is criminally underrated, which is the AUG. This thing doesn't get used all that much because it's kind of a little bit lacking on the mobility side of things, but you can outfit this to be a crazy fast TTK gun that it's going to catch some people off guard when they die by it, and they're just going to be kind of like lost in the sauce when you take them out. So let's give you guys a good build for this. Muzzle, of course, throwing on the mono. That's just kind of what we'd be doing here. After that, we're going to skip that. We're going to go straight to the laser section. We don't need a barrel in this specific gun. And what we're going to do is we're going to go throw on the 5MW laser for that increase in hipfire accuracy and sprint to fire speed. This is really solid, and I definitely think it's going to kind of save your bacon because this thing doesn't necessarily have the craziest strafe speed. So the 5MW is really going to help you out in those close quarter situations. And we're skipping the underbarrel section, by the way, too, and we're going straight to the magazine. And this is where it becomes very crucial to have one of these two magazines, where it becomes down to either the 30 round or the 60 round. You have to use the NATO, the 5.56 NATO. You cannot get away with running the 32 round mag on this. You have to run the NATO rounds, and that's final. Like, that's the only way this gun's going to be good. So it's up to you whether you want to run the 5.5630 or the 60 round. For me, I'm going for the 60 just because I feel like 30 is not that much in a secondary, and I'm coming against, you know, probably multiple people, usually speaking, at a time. So when I don't have to reload after every single kill, that is very nice. So I'm going to go for the 60. After that, though, we're going to go straight for the stock, and you guys can do a variety of different things in here, but for me, I go for the Forge Tag CQB comb, and that is like my go-to on this thing. And then after that, we kind of have a bit of an option here to go for something else, but more or less I would suggest going for a rear grip here. And I'm just going to go down here for the stipple grip tape for that increase in aim down sight speed and sprint to fire speed. This is a really solid option, and it definitely helps this gun be a little bit more agile and compete with some of those Vanguard and, of course, the Cold War SMGs. This is my full build here for this thing. Definitely try it out. It is criminally underrated, super good, and you guys are going to be dominating Warzone. Like, seriously, this really does compete. All right, next time we're going to take a look at the CX9. This is another gun I think people don't give enough love. So this is one of those guns also that has an integral suppressor available to us. We're going to skip the muzzle category and go straight for the barrel, and we're going to go throw on the CX-38S, basically the last barrel in here, which has the integral suppressor in here for the damage range, recoil control, bullet velocity, and of course sound suppression. You're going to lose a little bit of stuff here, but overall, getting a 2-for-1 on these attachments is really solid, and so I cannot complain about that at all. We're going to skip the underbarrel section. We're going to go straight to the magazine. I'm going to go straight for the 50-round drum. You kind of need this on here because the CX9 has a pretty decent fire rate, and you're going to run out of ammo pretty quickly. And of course, the base magazine is not any bit like satisfactory at all. Even the 30 rounds is not satisfactory, so just go for the 50, and you guys will definitely want to be using this exclusively. Also, stay away from the shenanigans. It's not worth it. Do not go for the hollow point. I don't know who thinks of this stuff, but do not ever go for that. Just go for the 50, call it a day. The rear grip section here, we're actually going to go use that. We're going to go throw on the CX9 tack grip, and I personally prefer to use this. I mean, you guys could probably switch this out for something like a laser, maybe like a 5MW. That's gonna be pretty good as well, but I just kind of like having this on here. So I mean, listen, it just comes down a little bit more personal preference here, whether it be a rear grip or if you want to go to the laser section, and like I said, throw on a 5MW. You can swap out either or. But we're in the stock section now. For our next attachment, we're gonna go for the CX-FR. This is basically the no stock attachment of this gun, and we definitely need this here because the CX9 is not as mobile for an SMG as it should be. So you got to be able to accentuate, you know, that benefit, or we got to be able to enhance that benefit. So that's why we got that. And then lastly, we're gonna go for a perk here, and we're gonna go throw in sleight of hand because the CX9's reload is criminally slow, and it's pretty bad. Like it's really bad. It's worse than the MP5. So we're trying not to like chalk ourselves here in game and get caught with our pants down because we don't have a gun, our gun reloaded. So sleight of hand is going to be a huge benefit to this. So we're just going to throw that on there. This is my full build here. Definitely try it out. You guys are really going to like it. It's going to take some people out, catch them by surprise, much like the AUG. It's really good. Next up, let's take a look at the Bison. So this actually got a buff here more recently. It's probably one of the biggest buffs in Warzone history, I think, is what JGod ended up calling it. But this is a pretty viable SMG right now here in the overall meta scheme of things. But I just still don't think it gets picked all that much. We went over in my previous video yesterday talking about like how often guns get picked, and this was nowhere close to the top. So it definitely doesn't get picked up that much, but it is still very good to use. So let's give you guys a build for it. First thing, muzzle category, of course, mono suppressor. In the barrel section, we're going to go use the 8.7 steel here for damage range, bullet velocity, and of course, recoil control. Very good to be able to use on this gun, and I'd recommend this pretty much exclusively on this gun. I don't really find a need to run any of these other ones. It doesn't make sense. We're skipping the magazine section. We're going to go straight for a laser just because, I mean, we realistically do not have to have a magazine on this thing when it's got like 64 round stock or 50 plus round stock. That's just kind of a waste of attachment at that point. So what we're going to do is we're going to go throw on the 5MW laser here for hipfire accuracy and sprint to fire speed. This is really solid, and I absolutely love having the 5MW on this thing. Makes it a lot better at close range. Now in the stock section here, we're going to go throw on the no stock, or you guys can throw on the Corvus skeleton stock. It's up to you guys. I've had good success with either or, but for me personally, what I've ran recently is the no stock attachment, and that has worked out very nicely. Now for the last one here, you guys can do a variety of different things. You can go for a perk, you can go for a rear grip, but for me personally, I'm gonna go for the rear grip here. I'm gonna go for the stipple grip tape, that ADS speed, sprint to fire. This is once again gonna make our gun more agile, and of course can help you compete with those other SMGs out there that are currently, probably at the top of the meta, like the MP40, the Owen gun, so on and so forth. And this can be a full build here. Definitely try it out. Gotta love the Morning Glory variant, the nice little white variant with a little bit of, what is that, gold, bronze, whatever you want to call it. It looks pretty nice. All right, next up, we're gonna take a look here at the MP7. So this is the Rebirth variant, which is a little bit fitting. I like that. I mean, I don't know how many guys are gonna, catch that one, but I'm using the Rebirth variant here. It's pretty cool. But let's give you guys a build here for the MP7, since I know a lot of people absolutely love it, and it's a still pretty good gun to use. So of course, mono suppressor here, not going to talk about that. Barrel section, we're going to go for the FSS Recon barrel. Damage range, bullet velocity, recoil control, you know what I'm saying? Very, very good to use, and I don't recommend any of these other ones in here. Skipping the underbarrel section, going straight for that magazine. We're gonna go throw on the 50 round mag. Normally speaking, I go for a 60, but the MP7, for whatever reason, feels a tad bit slower than I'd prefer it to feel. So I go for the 50, as I feel like 50 is usually speaking pretty good more often than not, and I don't think I need 60, but you guys can definitely run 60. Personal preference. You will be a little bit slower though. In the laser section though, we're actually going to go up in here, and we're going to go throw on the 5MW laser here for that hipfire accuracy and sprint to fire. It's going to work out pretty nicely, though. You guys definitely switch this out here for something like a stipple grip tape if you really want to, but that's just, personal preference to you. And then for lastly, we're going to go for the stock. We're going to go for the no stock attachment here for that maximum increase in movement speed and of course aim down sight speed. So this is my full build here for the MP7. Really solid. Give it a try, and you'll be dominating people. You're taking them out, they'll be questioning why they died. Let's give you guys a build here for the Grau 5.56, a crazy good DLC gun from way back in the day. I know a lot of you guys out there like this. I think I uploaded this gun here more recently, but in case you guys did not catch that video, here is going to be the build for it. First thing, obviously, we got it, mono suppressor. Barrel section, we go for the Tempest 26.4 Archangel. There's no reason you guys should run any other barrel here in the Grau. There's literally not another reason to run a different barrel. It's not going to be beneficial. Even if you're trying to make this an SMG, it's not going to be good. Run this as a true AR, pretty much for like medium-ish range, and you're gonna have an absolute blast using this gun because the iron sights on this are incredible. We're gonna make use of that. In the underbarrel section, throwing on the Commando foregrip here, just got to add a tad bit of recoil stabilization, and that's really about it. We really don't need too much on this thing. In the laser section, we're gonna go throw on the tack laser here for that increase in ADS speed, aiming stability, and of course aim walking steadiness. This is gonna make this gun an absolute laser beam, and you guys are gonna be beaming people across the map. It's gonna be a little bit nuts. And then of course, down for our last attachment, we're gonna go for that beautiful 60 round mag, as I'm a 60 round magazine kind of guy. And of course, I mean, I just go for the 60 anyways on a majority of my Modern Warfare ARs, just for the pure fact of I believe 60 is better than 50 more often than not for your primary assault rifle. So this is my full build here for the Grau. try it out. I mean, you ain't gonna be disappointed. It competes. And then for our last gun here today in our top 10, we're gonna give you guys a build for the M13. This is gonna be more of a medium-ish range build, so let's hop into this thing. First thing, muzzle, of course, mono. Barrel section, we're gonna go for that Tempest marksman barrel, damage range, bullet velocity, and recoil control. Always really solid, so you can't complain with that. This is gonna be the best one out there for this gun. In the underbarrel section, the pretty standard Commando foregrip. Don't gotta go over that too much. In the magazine, we're gonna go for that beautiful 60. This has got a really high fire rate, so you definitely need the 60 on this gun. It's gonna be very beneficial to have the 60. Then, of course, to round out this build, in the optics section, we're more or less gonna go for the Corp Combat Hollow Sight or the PBX7 Hollow. My personal choice is going to be the PBX Hollow 7. I don't really know why I wasn't using this earlier. I just kind of like the way it looks. I think it looks really cool, a little bit futuristic, and it's a bit interesting than using the regular Corp Combat Hollow. You guys could definitely, though, go for something like the VLK 3x optic and be perfectly okay, but for me, I normally go for the PBX Hollow 7 on this gun. So this is my full build here. That's been my top 10 model for guns you guys should be using in Warzone. If you guys enjoyed the video, give it a like, subscribe, and I'll see you all later. Just on this recap, don't be Randy, and I'm out. Peace.